The final 24 hours passed slowly. On the council homeworld, panic spread through the streets. Some species prepared to evacuate. Others barricaded themselves in shelters. The ancient fleet hung in orbit like a sword waiting to fall. But something else was happening. Councillor Lyras and the reform movement worked through the night, contacting every member of the council. They showed the evidence of corruption. They shared the ancient data cores. They explained what humanity really was and what the council had become. "We have a choice," Lyras has told the assembled representatives. "We can fight and die, or we can admit our failures and build something better. The humans are not conquerors. If they were, they would have burned our worlds already. They want justice. Perhaps we should give it to them." The debate raged for hours. Some species still wanted to fight. Others argued for surrender. But slowly, as the deadline approached, the truth became clear. The council had failed. It had become exactly what it was meant to prevent: a system where the powerful oppressed the weak. High Councillor Thexnir, who had led the council for 30 years, finally spoke. His voice was tired and defeated. "I have reviewed all the evidence. I have studied the ancient records. I understand now what we forgot. The council was built on the foundation humanity gave us. We were meant to be better than this." He turned to the Draxian delegation. "Councillor Vextar, you pushed for the execution of a child. You used our laws to justify murder. I should have stopped you. I should have had the courage to say no. I failed, and that failure has brought us to this moment." Vextar stood silent, his scales pale. He knew what was coming. "By unanimous vote," Thexnir announced, "the Galactic Council surrenders to Earth's demands. Those responsible for Hyun Choi's execution will be turned over for trial. The Council itself will dissolve, admitting our failure to uphold the principles we were founded upon." The message went up to the last horizon. Fleet Marshal Jiwan received it with relief. She had been prepared to demonstrate more of the ancient fleet's weapons. She was glad she would not have to. "Stand down to defensive positions," she ordered. "Prepare to receive prisoners for transport to Earth." Over the next 3 days, those responsible for Hyun's death surrendered themselves. Vextar came first, walking with dignity despite his shame. The judges who had approved the sentence followed. The executioners came last, escorted by their own people who no longer supported what they had done. They were taken to Earth, where Justice Minister Hana Wu prepared for the trials. She was a careful woman who believed in law above all else. She would ensure the trials were fair, even for those who had killed a human child. "We do not become them," Hana told her staff as they prepared. "We show the galaxy what justice really looks like: fair trials, strong evidence, proper defense. If we execute them the way they executed Hyun, we are no better than they are." The trials were broadcast across the galaxy. Every species watched as humanity demonstrated its version of justice. Each accused received legal representation. Each had the right to present evidence and call witnesses. The trials took months, not days. What emerged shocked many who watched. The judges had not acted alone. They had been pressured by the council's power structure. The executioners had followed orders, believing they were upholding the law. Even Vextar, proud and stubborn, had acted according to his culture's values, not understanding that his culture might be wrong. Justice Minister Hana presented the evidence carefully. "You killed a child," she told the accused. "You did it knowing he was innocent of any real crime. You did it because your laws were unjust and your culture valued revenge over mercy. You are guilty. But we want you to understand why you are guilty, so you can be better." The sentences were not death. Instead, the guilty were required to live among humans for 20 years, learning Earth's values and helping to rebuild what the war had damaged. They would serve the families of those who had died in the conflict. They would see firsthand what their actions had cost. "Death is easy," Hana said. "Understanding is hard. We choose the hard path." While the trials continued, President Min-ji-oh worked with Councillor Lyras to build something new. They called it the Commonwealth of Free Worlds. Every species would have an equal voice, regardless of military power or economic strength. Laws would be made by consensus, not by the strong imposing their will on the weak. The old council failed. Because power corrupted it, Minje explained in her speech to the galaxy. We will build checks and balances into this new system. No single species will dominate. No voice will be ignored. And if we fail, if we become corrupt like the old council, then perhaps we deserve whatever comes next. 150 species signed the Commonwealth Charter in the first year. More followed as they saw how the new system worked. The ancient fleet remained active during this time, not as conquerors, but as peacekeepers. They stopped 3 wars before they could start, simply by appearing and reminding everyone what humanity could do if forced to act. Admiral Taeyang retired after the trials ended. He had seen enough war for one lifetime. He visited Nexus Station where Hyun had died. The memorial garden had grown larger. People from dozens of species came to leave flowers and remember the child whose death had changed the galaxy. Hyun's parents were there. They had been offered wealth and compensation, but they refused. Our son died, his mother said. No amount of money changes that. But if his death means other children will grow up in a safer galaxy, then maybe his life meant something. Taeyang knelt beside them and placed his own flowers at the memorial. I am sorry we could not save him, he said. I am sorry we had to wake the old weapons. I am sorry for all of it. Hyun's father touched his shoulder. You did what you had to do. We do not blame you. We blame the system that killed our son. You destroyed that system. That is enough. Ambassador Nari Kim returned to public service, but not as a diplomat. She worked with refugees and displaced people, those who had lost homes during the conflict. She spent her days helping others, trying to make up for her failure to save one small boy. I should have done more, she told Mireille when they met for tea. I should have fought harder. You did everything you could, Mireille replied. Sometimes the system is too broken to fix from within. Sometimes it needs to be torn down and rebuilt. You were one person against 1,000 species. You did your best. Captain Sora Lee remained with the Eternal Requiem for 5 more years. She participated in peacekeeping operations and helped train the new Commonwealth's defense forces. But eventually she returned the ship to its berth in the Luna Cavern. Rest now, she told the vessel as she powered it down. You have earned it. Sleep until you are needed again. I hope that day never comes. Most of the ancient fleet was sealed away again within 10 years. Only a dozen ships remained active, ready to respond if needed. The pilots and crews returned to civilian life, though they maintained their training in secret. Just in case. Dr. Yoonji Baek opened the archives of the Burning Era to scholars from across the galaxy. Thousands came to study humanity's history and learn from their mistakes. The archives became a university, a place where beings from all species could study together and understand the cost of war. We forgot our history once, Yoonji said at the opening ceremony. It nearly destroyed us. Now we remember and we teach others so everyone can learn from what happened. 3 years after Hyun's death, a ceremony was held at Nexus Station. A permanent memorial was unveiled, a garden much larger than before. Children from every Commonwealth species played there, watched over by their parents. The garden's name was simple, Hyun's Peace. The inscription was in every language. Never again, never forgotten. Admiral Taeyang attended with his grandson, a boy about Hyun's age. The child ran through the gardens with Draxian children, Corvan children, and dozens of others. They played together without knowing or caring about the war their parents had fought. Nari sat on a bench, tending the memorial flowers as she did every week. She looked up as Taeyang approached. Do you think we did the right thing? She asked. I think we did the only thing we could, Taeyang replied. We tried peace. It failed. We used force. It worked. Now we try peace again, but from a position of strength. Maybe that is what was missing before. Or maybe we are just better at pretending now, Nari said sadly. Maybe, Taeyang admitted. But these children are not pretending. Look at them. They do not see enemies. They see friends. Perhaps that is enough. Far above, invisible in orbit, a single ancient fleet vessel maintained watch. Fleet Marshal Jiwon Ryu sat in her command chair, now gray-haired and tired. She would retire soon, passing command to the next generation. But for now, she kept the vigil. A message came through from a distant sector. A species called the Kalori were facing extinction from a natural disaster. Their sun was dying, and they lacked the technology to evacuate. They were not part of the Commonwealth. They had no treaties with Earth. They were simply in trouble. Jiwon read the message and smiled. She activated 3 ancient fleet vessels and dispatched them immediately. "We do not return to conquer," she said quietly, repeating humanity's ancient creed. "We return to protect." The ships departed, moving silently through the darkness. They would save the Kalori and ask nothing in return. The news of the Draxian fleet's destruction spread across the galaxy in hours. 7,000 warships had fled from a single human vessel. 3,000 had been destroyed in 30 minutes. The recording showed weapons that should not exist and ship movements that violated physics. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Fear replaced arrogance in the Great Chamber. Representatives who had laughed at Earth's demands now spoke in whispers. Ambassador Seok-yoon stood at the human podium, his expression unchanged. High Counselor Thexanir's voice shook as he spoke. "Ambassador Yoon, your species has committed an act of war against a council member. This is unprecedented aggression. We demand an explanation." Seok's reply was cold. The Draxian Empire entered human space with hostile intent. They fired first. Earth defended itself. As for unprecedented aggression, we would remind the Council that the execution of a human child was also unprecedented. You set the rules of this game. We are merely playing by them. You destroyed 3,000 ships, a Corvin representative said. That is not defense. That is slaughter. We let 7,000 escape, Seok replied. If we wanted slaughter, none would have survived. Earth gave 7 days for compliance. 5 days remain. Surrender those responsible for Hyun Choi's death, or face the consequences. Several council members began shouting at once. Some demanded Earth be expelled from the council. Others called for combined military action against humanity. But the older species, those who had studied the data cores and their own ancient myths, remained silent. They were beginning to understand what the galaxy had forgotten. Emperor Zaldrix refused to accept defeat. Pride and fury drove him to make a fatal mistake. He contacted other council species calling for a coalition. The humans have 1 or 2 advanced ships, he told them. Together, we can overwhelm them with numbers. Join me and we will split Earth's territories among us. 5 species answered his call. The Corvin Union sent their fleet. The Theran Empire contributed warships. The Merchants Guild of Zala provided support vessels. The Hive Worlds sent their bioships. The Crystalline Collective added their energy-based vessels. Combined with what remained of the Draxian fleet, they assembled 90,000 warships. Fleet Marshal Jiwon Ryu watched the coalition form. She sat in her command chair on the last horizon, reviewing tactical data. Around her, the ancient fleet waited. She had deployed only 1 ship so far. Now it was time to show Earth's true strength. How many ships do we commit? Admiral Taeyang asked from Earth. Jiwon considered. 5. More than enough. Vice Admiral Hyun Cho commanded the second wave. His flagship, the Silent Thunder, was slightly smaller than the Eternal Requiem, but no less deadly. With him came 3 more ancient vessels. The Forgotten Dawn under Captain Isol Jin, the Mercy's End under Commander Doyen Kang, and the Starbreaker under Captain Boksu Park. The coalition fleet moved toward human space with confidence. 90,000 ships against 5 seemed like certain victory. They had learned from the Draxian failure and planned to attack from multiple directions, overwhelming the human vessels with coordinated strikes. They did not understand what they faced. The battle began near a system called Haven, a human colony of 2 million people. The coalition fleet arrived in 3 massive waves surrounding the system. They demanded surrender. Hyun's response was to drop the cloak on all 5 human ships at once. The ancient fleet did not fight like modern navies. They had been built during a war against an enemy that consumed stars. Their weapons made normal warfare look like children fighting with sticks. The Silent Thunder's primary weapon was a gravity lance. It fired, and a beam of pure gravitational force crossed the distance to the enemy fleet. Where it struck, ships collapsed inward, crushed by their own mass. A single shot destroyed 100 vessels. The Forgotten Dawn specialized in stealth and precision. Captain Isol brought her ship through the enemy formation like a ghost, appearing and disappearing. Each time she appeared, enemy command ships exploded. The coalition fleet's coordination fell apart as they lost their commanders. The Starbreaker lived up to its name. Captain Baksu activated a weapon that had not been fired in 3,000 years. Space itself cracked. The enemy ships caught in the affected area simply ceased to exist, erased from reality. 5,000 vessels vanished in an instant. The Mercy's End under Doyen Kang had the strangest weapon of all. It fired missiles that did not explode. Instead, they attached to enemy ships and began converting matter directly into energy. The affected ships glowed bright as they burned from within, their own structure becoming fuel for destruction. And Sora's eternal requiem moved through the chaos like a conductor leading an orchestra, coordinating the other ships and destroying any enemies who tried to flee. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, 70,000 coalition ships were destroyed. The remaining 20,000 surrendered. The ancient fleet let them go just as before. Let them tell the story. Let the galaxy understand. But Earth's response did not stop with battles in space. General Tainam led ground operations on worlds controlled by the coalition species. His soldiers moved with surgical precision, targeting only military installations and government facilities. They did not harm civilians. They did not destroy infrastructure. They simply removed the ability of these species to make war. On the Draxian homeworld, Tay's forces infiltrated the Imperial Palace. They did not kill the Emperor, though they could have. Instead, they took control of the planetary defense grid and broadcast a message to the entire planet. The Draxian Empire has fallen, Tay announced. Your Emperor led you to war against those you did not understand. Your military is defeated. Your government has collapsed. But Earth does not seek your destruction. We seek justice. Return to your homes. Care for your families. Build a better future. Your time of conquest is over. Captain Mirai Song's intelligence division performed the most precise operation of all. They had spent decades secretly infiltrating Council communication systems. Now they activated those hidden programs, searching through years of data for every crime the Council had overlooked or ignored. What they found shocked even Earth's leaders. The Council had not killed only Hyun. Over the past century, they had executed or enslaved thousands of beings from smaller species. They had ignored atrocities committed by powerful members. They had accepted bribes and made unjust laws. The Council that claimed to represent justice had become corrupt beyond measure. Mirai released all of it. Every secret transmission, every hidden crime, every betrayal of the Council's founding principles. The data flooded across the galaxy, and species after species reacted with outrage at what their supposed protectors had done. Counselor Lyras gathered the few Council members who still had honor. Together, they researched the ancient data cores more deeply. What they discovered confirmed their worst fears. The Galactic Council itself had been founded by species humanity had uplifted. The original Council 3,000 years ago had been created to govern while humanity slept. We were supposed to be caretakers, Lyras said in a secret meeting. Our founders were given technology and knowledge by the Watchers, the ones we now know as humanity. We were meant to build a just galaxy. Instead, we forgot our origins and became tyrants. She began reaching out to other species, building a coalition of those who wanted real change. They called themselves the Reform Movement. They demanded the Council's dissolution and the creation of something better. Meanwhile, Fleet Marshal Jiwan continued her methodical advance. The ancient fleet moved from system to system, targeting only military forces and those directly responsible for injustice. She was following a strategy from the old war against the Devovers. Show overwhelming force. Offer mercy to those who surrender. Never harm innocents. Make it clear that resistance was futile but surrender was honorable. Emperor Zaldrix, cornered and desperate, made one final attempt. He authorized the use of planet-killer weapons, bombs that could destroy entire worlds. He planned to use them on human colonies, believing that if he could not win, he would at least hurt humanity badly enough to feel avenged. Captain Isol Jin intercepted the weapons convoy. The Forgotten Dawn appeared beside the transport ships, grabbed them with tractor beams that should not exist, and jumped away with them. The entire convoy vanished before the Draxian crews understood what happened. Isol delivered the planet killers to Earth, where they were dismantled and studied. Then she sent a message to Zaldrix. You tried to murder billions. We stopped you. This is your only warning. Surrender yourself for trial or we stop being gentle. Admiral Taeyang struggled with what humanity was doing. Late at night, he spoke with Mirai in his office. Are we becoming the monsters we fought before? Mirai shook her head. The ancient humans became monsters because they fought an enemy that gave them no choice. We are different. We are fighting with precision. We could destroy the Draxian homeworld, but we have not. We could kill every member of the council, but we have not. We are doing exactly what G1 planned, showing force but maintaining honor. How many have we killed? Taeyang asked. 80,000, all combatants who chose to fight. 0 civilians. 0 innocents. And we have freed 6 species that were enslaved by council members. The Galactic Council chambers were built to impress. The Great Hall could hold representatives from 1,000 worlds, each species with its own section designed for its specific needs. Some breathed different atmospheres and sat in sealed chambers. Others needed different gravity or temperature. The chamber was a monument to diversity and cooperation, or so they claimed. Ambassador Nari Kim had left the council. She could not bear to remain after watching Hyun die because of her failure. In her place came Ambassador Seok Yoon, a man who had spent his career in Earth's military intelligence. He walked into the chambers wearing a simple black suit, carrying only a datapad. The council members barely noticed him at first. Humans were insignificant, controlling just 7 star systems. They had the smallest military in the council. Most representatives were discussing trade agreements and border disputes, the normal business of galactic politics. High Counselor Thexnir called the session to order. He was an insectoid being, tall and thin with multiple arms and compound eyes. He had led the council for 30 years and considered himself wise and fair. Ambassador Yoon, Thexnir said, his translator making his clicking speech understandable. Earth's representative, you have requested emergency session time. Please state your business. Siak approached the central podium. He did not bow or show deference as previous human ambassadors had. He simply activated his datapad and spoke clearly. Earth demands the immediate extradition of all individuals involved in the execution of Hyun Choi. This includes Counselor Vextar of the Draxian Empire, the judges who approved the sentence and the executioners who carried it out. They will face trial on Earth for the murder of a human child. Silence filled the chamber for 3 seconds. Then laughter began. It started with the Draxian delegation and spread through dozens of species. The sound echoed off the walls. Vextar stood, his scales gleaming. The human makes jokes. Perhaps grief has driven him mad. Earth demands. Earth has no authority to demand anything. Seok did not react to the laughter. He waited for it to die down. Earth provides 1 galactic standard week for compliance. That is 7 days. If those responsible are not surrendered for trial, Earth will implement alternative measures. More laughter. A reptilian representative from the Corvin Union stood. Alternative measures? What will you do, human? Send your 20 little ships against us. The Council has a combined military force of 2 million vessels. You are nothing. Seok touched his datapad again. Earth is transmitting data cores to all Council members now. We suggest you review them carefully. They contain historical records that may interest you. The transmission went out. In council chambers across the galaxy, data cores arrived. Most representatives ignored them, still laughing at Earth's audacity. But a few, the older civilizations with longer memories, began to review the data. What they found made them stop laughing. The data cores were heavily encrypted, using algorithms that council computers struggled to decode. But pieces came through. References to something called the Burning Era. Images of ships that did not match any known design. Battle records showing weapons that violated known physics, and repeated mentions of the Firebringers, the ones who came from the Blue World. On the Draxian homeworld, Emperor Zaldrix reviewed the data with his military advisors. This is obviously fake, he declared. Humans trying to scare us with false history. They forget we have records going back 5,000 years. There is no mention of any human empire. My Emperor, one advisor said hesitantly, we have found something in our oldest archives, myths from before the Empire, from the tribal days. Stories about beings who came from the stars and taught our ancestors to build and farm. They were called the Skywalkers. The myths say they had skin like ours but the wrong color, and they came from a world covered in water. Zaldrix waved his hand dismissively. Children's tales. We respond to Earth's demands with force. Mobilize the warfleet, all of it. We will show these humans what happens when prey tries to threaten a predator. The Draxian Empire began moving its military might. 10,000 warships, each one the size of a city, converged from 30 star systems. It was the largest military fleet ever assembled in Council history. They moved toward human space, weapons charged, crews ready for an easy victory. Fleet Marshal Jiwan Ryu watched the Draxian fleet approach from her command center on the last horizon. Around her, tactical displays showed enemy positions, speed, and armament. Her officers analyzed the data, calculating engagement strategies. They are not even trying to hide, one officer reported. They are coming in a straight line, maximum speed, all weapons hot. They want us to see them coming. They are showing off, Jiwan said calmly. They think overwhelming force will make us surrender. They do not understand yet. Captain Mirai Song was coordinating the warning beacon deployment. These were ancient devices that humanity had placed throughout space during their guardian years. Some still existed, forgotten and dormant. Mirai's ships were activating them and placing new ones. Beacons are active, she reported. Any species with cultural memory going back more than 2,000 years should recognize them. The beacons began transmitting. They sent out patterns of energy that had not been seen in the galaxy for 3 millennia. On a few worlds, old beings felt something stir in their genetic memory. A sense of dread. A warning that had been passed down through generations. One such being was Counselor Lyris of the Veneran people. Her species lived for 500 years, and she was near the end of her life. When the beacon patterns reached her, she went to her private archives and began searching through the oldest records. What she found horrified her. The Venerans had been uplifted by beings they called the Watchers. The myth said the Watchers had saved their world from destruction, taught them technology, and then vanished. The myths also said that if the Watchers ever returned, it would mean something terrible had happened. The final warning was clear. When the beacons sing again, the Watchers have awakened. Pray you have not earned their anger. Lyra's contacted other old council members, those whose species had long histories. Slowly, they began to piece together the truth. Many council species had myths about benefactors from the stars, teachers, guardians, protectors, and in every myth these beings came from a blue world covered in water. We have made a grave mistake, Lyra said in an emergency meeting. The humans are not what we thought. We have killed the child of the Watchers, but her warnings went unheard. The council was too confident. The Draxian fleet was too close. The momentum toward war could not be stopped. Sora Lee sat in the command chair of the Eternal Requiem. Her ship waited at the edge of human space, cloaked and invisible to normal sensors. She watched the Draxian fleet approach, 10,000 strong, spread across space like a swarm of metal locusts. They are impressive, her second officer said. I have never seen so many ships in one place. They are children playing with toys, Sora replied. They do not know what war really is. They are about to learn. Admiral Taiyang sent one final message to the Draxian fleet. You have entered human space. You have come with weapons ready and intent to kill. We gave you a week to choose peace. You chose war. What happens next is on you. Emperor Zaldrix himself replied, his voice full of contempt. You have one damaged colony ship visible on our sensors. We have 10,000 warships. Surrender now and we will merely enslave your species. Resist and we will wipe you from the galaxy. Sora received her orders directly from Fleet Marshal Jiwan. They were simple. Show them. She smiled and began entering commands. Around her, the bridge came fully alive. Systems that had been dormant activated with a sound like singing. The ship's weapons array woke up and the universe itself seemed to notice. Eternal Requiem to all Draxian vessels, Sora broadcast. You were warned. You did not listen. In memory of Hyun Choi, who liked gardens and toy ships, in honor of all innocence, we return. The Eternal Requiem dropped its cloak. The Draxian fleet sensors suddenly registered a ship 3 kilometers long, appearing from nowhere. Before they could react, the ancient vessel's weapons fired. What happened next was impossible by modern physics. The Eternal Requiem did not fire lasers or missiles. It fired distortions in reality itself. Space folded, gravity inverted. 300 Draxian warships simply ceased to exist, torn apart by forces they could not see or understand. The remaining fleet panicked. They fired everything they had at the single human ship. Thousands of weapons struck the Eternal Requiem's shields. The shields held. Not only held, they reflected the energy back at the attackers. Another 400 ships died to their own weapons. Sora's voice remained calm as she broadcast again. You still have time to surrender. Drop your weapons and return home. Tell your emperor that Earth's patience is over. But the Draxian fleet had been trained for glory, not wisdom. They charged forward, trying to overwhelm the single ship with numbers. It was like ants trying to overwhelm a tiger. The eternal requiem moved through space like water flowing downhill. It dodged and weaved impossible maneuvers, breaking every law of inertia. Its weapons fired again and again, each shot destroying dozens of enemy ships. The battle was not a fight. It was an execution. Mirai spent 3 days in the cavern beneath Luna. She did not sleep much. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the ancient ships and wondered what kind of humans had built them. Junyo Han showed her things that changed everything she knew about her own species. The history began with images on holographic screens. Earth, but not the Earth from school lessons. This Earth had cities that touched the clouds, ships that moved between stars as easily as cars moved between towns. Humanity had spread across the galaxy, building and exploring and thriving. We were not conquerors, Junho explained as the images shifted. We were gardeners. We found young species and helped them grow. We protected worlds that could not protect themselves. For 10,000 years, humanity was the guardian of this part of space. What happened? Mirai asked. The images darkened. A species called the Devovers appeared in the records. They came from another galaxy, creatures that consumed everything in their path. They ate planets, drank stars, and left only darkness behind. When they reached this galaxy, they began to feed. The war lasted 300 years, Junho said. Species after species fell to the Devovers. Entire civilizations vanished overnight. Only humanity had the technology and the will to stand against them. Mirai watched the battle records. The ancient human fleet moved through space like wolves hunting prey. Their weapons tore holes in reality. They turned gravity into a weapon. They made stars explode to destroy enemy formations. The Devovers were terrible, but humanity was worse. We won, Junho said quietly. We destroyed the Devovers completely. Not a single one survived. But the cost was beyond imagining. Billions of humans died. Hundreds of worlds burned. And we became something we did not want to be. We became the monsters we had fought. The final images showed the aftermath. The surviving humans gathered and made a choice. They would seal away their weapons and their history. They would return to Earth and start again. They would forget what they had been and try to become something better. We wiped our own records, Junho said. We destroyed our technology. We went back to the beginning and grew up again, slowly, peacefully. The only thing we kept was this fleet, hidden deep and guarded by a few who knew the truth. We hoped it would never be needed again. Mirai looked at the old man. How many people know about this? Before today? 30 people on Earth. A few hundred scattered through the colonies maintaining the hidden facilities. We are the children of the guards who volunteered to remember what everyone else chose to forget. A woman approached them. She was younger than Junho, with sharp eyes and the bearing of a soldier. Captain Song, I am Sora Lee. I command one of the ancient fleet vessels. Mirai stared at her. You can fly these ships? I was born to fly them. My family has maintained the eternal requiem for 80 generations. We trained in secret, hoping we would never have to wake her up. Sora smiled, but there was no humor in it. That hope is gone now. Over the next 2 days, more people arrived at Luna Base. Admiral Taeyang came, his face showing shock as he saw the fleet. A woman named Yunji Baek arrived, a scientist who specialized in ancient history. She had spent her life studying fragments of truth hidden in old myths. Most of what we are is forgotten, Yunji explained to the group gathered in the command center. But pieces remain. Some of the species in the Galactic Council are descended from people we uplifted during our guardian years. They have myths about the Firebringers who came from a blue world. They just do not know those myths are about us. A military man named Doyun Kang arrived last. He commanded something called the Ghost Fleet Special Operations Division. His soldiers had trained for situations like this, learning combat techniques from the ancient era. The question before us is simple, Doyun said to the assembled group. Do we use what we have? Do we become what we were? Admiral Taeyang looked around the room. He saw Mirai, young and uncertain. He saw Sora, ready for war. He saw Junho, bearing the weight of millennia. He thought of Hyun Choi, small and frightened and innocent. The boy's name was Hyun, Taeyang said. He liked gardens. He had a toy ship. He died because the galaxy sees us as weak. They killed a child to prove a point. He stood up, his decision made. We do not become conquerors. We do not burn the galaxy. But we do not let this stand. We show them who we really are. We make them understand that peace is a choice, not a weakness. Junho nodded slowly. Then it is time. I will inform the president. Admiral, the ancient fleet is yours to command. But Taeyang shook his head. Not mine. I am too tied to the current military thinking. We need someone who understands these ships in their bones. He looked at a woman who had just entered the room. She was in her 40s with gray hair and eyes like steel. Fleet Marshal Ji-won Ryu, Taeyang said. You were born for this role. I yield command to you. Ji-won had spent her entire life preparing for a day she hoped would never come. Her family had guarded the ancient fleet's secrets for 3,000 years. She had studied every battle record, every tactical manual, every lesson from the war against the Devovers. She knew these ships better than she knew herself. Very well, she said. If we do this, we do it right. We do not slaughter. We do not destroy civilizations. We target only those responsible. We show the galaxy that humanity's mercy has limits, but humanity's honor does not. The orders went out through secret channels. Across the solar system, hidden facilities began to wake up. On Mars, beneath the red dust, hangar doors opened for the first time in millennia. In the asteroid belt, weapons platforms activated. On Europa, under kilometers of ice, shipyards came to life. Sora Lee stood on the bridge of the Eternal Requiem. The ship was 3 kilometers long, shaped like a blade. She touched the controls and the ship responded instantly. It felt alive under her hands, eager to fly after sleeping for so long. Hello, old friend, she whispered to the ship. I know you are tired. I know you wanted to rest, but we need you one more time. The ship's engines hummed to life. Around the cavern, lights flickered on as other vessels awakened. Pilots who had trained in secret their entire lives took their positions. Engineers who had maintained systems for generations watched as dormant technology came back to full power. Admiral Taeyang stood in the command center. Watching displays showed the fleet status. Ship after ship turned green, reporting ready. He felt sick and relieved at the same time. Humanity had tried so hard to be better, to leave the violence behind. Now they were taking it up again. Do you think we are making a mistake? He asked Mirai, who stood beside him. I think, she said slowly, that we tried peace. We tried patience. We tried diplomacy. The galaxy responded by killing our children. Maybe that means we failed. Or maybe it means they failed. Junho Han appeared on the main screen, broadcasting from Earth. The president has made her decision. We have authorization. Fleet Marshal Ryu. The ancient fleet is cleared for deployment. Ji-won's face appeared on another screen. She sat in the command chair of her flagship, the Last Horizon. Behind her, the bridge crew worked at stations that looked more like living organisms than machines. All ships report ready, she said. Beginning departure sequence. Across the solar system, the ancient fleet began to move. They did not rush. They did not need to. They moved with the patience of apex predators, certain of their power. On Earth, people watched their screens as the announcement came. The government told them the truth, all of it. The ancient past, the hidden fleet, the decision to respond to Hyun's death with force. Some people cheered. Some people cried. Some people felt horror at what their species had been and was becoming again. In the gardens of Nexus Station, where Hyun had died, flowers bloomed in the artificial sunlight. The sphere's broken pieces had been carefully collected by the Draxians and taken away. A small memorial stood where the boy had fallen. Already some people were leaving flowers there. They did not know yet that those flowers were about to be watered with fire. The gardens of Nexus Station floated in the darkness of space like a jewel. Inside the massive biodome, plants from 100 worlds grew together under artificial sunlight. Children of many species played among the flowers and trees. Some had scales, some had fur, and some looked almost human. Hyun Choi was one of the human children. He was 7 years old with bright eyes and a quick smile. His mother worked as a translator at the station, and his father maintained the life support systems. Hyun loved the gardens more than anywhere else. Today he was playing near the fountain with his toy ship, making it dive and soar through the air. Ambassador Nari Kim walked through the gardens with the Draxian delegation. The Draxians were tall reptilian beings with dark green scales and golden eyes. They had come to discuss a trade agreement with Earth. Nari had worked for 20 years to build good relationships with alien species. She knew how important this meeting was. The Draxians carried a sacred artifact with them. It was a crystalline sphere that held the memories of their ancestors. They brought it to show respect to the negotiations. The sphere sat on a floating platform as the group walked slowly through the gardens. Hyun did not see them coming. He threw his toy ship high into the air, running backward to catch it. The ship flew over his head. He jumped for it, his arms reaching up. His foot caught on a root. He stumbled backward, crashing into the floating platform. The sphere fell. Time seemed to slow down. Nari gasped and reached out, but she was too far away. The ancient artifact hit the stone path and shattered into 1,000 pieces. The sound echoed through the quiet garden. Everything stopped. The Draxian leader, Counselor Vextar, stared at the broken pieces. His golden eyes went dark. The other Draxians made a hissing sound that meant deep anger in their culture. Hyun stood frozen, his toy ship forgotten on the ground. Tears filled his eyes. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to." Nari rushed forward. "Counselor Vextar, please. It was an accident. The child meant no harm. Earth will provide compensation. We will do whatever is needed to make this right." Vextar's voice was cold. "The sphere of ancestors cannot be compensated. It held 3,000 years of our history. Your child has destroyed what can never be replaced." Over the next 3 days, Nari tried everything. She offered money, technology, and trade advantages. She begged the Draxian Empire to show mercy, but Vextar demanded justice according to Draxian law. In their culture, the destruction of ancestral memory required a life for a life. The matter went before the Galactic Council. Representatives from nearly 1,000 species gathered in the Great Chamber. Nari stood at the human podium, her voice shaking as she pleaded for Hyun's life. "He is a child," she said. "He made a mistake. Surely wisdom and mercy are the foundations of justice." Earth asked the Council to intervene, but the Draxian Empire was powerful. They controlled 30 star systems and had the largest military fleet in the Council. Many species feared them. When the vote came, the result was clear. 847 species voted to allow Draxian law to proceed. Only 152 voted against it. Admiral Taeyang Park watched the vote from Earth's military headquarters. He commanded the Human Defense Fleet, 20 ships that protected Earth's 7 colonies. His hands gripped the armrest of his chair as the numbers appeared on the screen. Beside him, Captain Mirai Song stood in silence. "This cannot stand," Taeyang said quietly. "We have no choice," Mirai replied. 20 ships against the Council's combined might. "We would be destroyed." Taeyang said nothing. He thought of his own son, safe at home. He thought of Hyun Choi, who was the same age. The boy who just wanted to play in a garden. The execution was broadcast across all Council worlds. They said it was to show that law applied to everyone equally. Hyun's parents were forced to watch. Nari Kim stood beside them, tears streaming down her face. She had failed. Hyun faced his death with courage that broke hearts across human space. He asked only one thing. "Tell my mom and dad I love them. Tell them I'm sorry I broke the sphere." When it was done, Earth fell silent. In every human colony, in every ship, in every home, people watched and felt something change inside them. The Galactic Council had shown them the truth. Humanity's peace, humanity's patience, humanity's friendship meant nothing when tested. On Earth, the government issued a statement expressing deep sorrow, but accepting the Council's decision. They urged calm. They called for continued cooperation with alien species. To the galaxy, it seemed humanity had accepted its place. But Captain Mirai received different orders. They came through a channel she did not know existed. The message was simple. "Report to Luna Base Level 7, Section 0. Clearance upgraded. Come alone." She took a shuttle to the moon, landing at the main base. But instead of going to the operations center, she followed the coordinates deeper, down a corridor marked for maintenance, through a door that required her new clearance, into an elevator that descended for 5 full minutes. The doors opened onto something impossible. The cavern stretched beyond sight. The ceiling was so far above that it disappeared into darkness, and filling the vast space were ships. Hundreds of ships. Thousands of ships. They were enormous, each one large enough to hold her entire fleet. The design was like nothing she had seen before. Smooth curves mixed with sharp angles. The metal seemed to absorb light. An old man waited for her. He wore a simple uniform with no rank insignia. "Captain Song," he said. "Welcome to the Preservation Project. My name is Junho Han. What you are seeing is the ancient fleet." Mirai could not speak. She walked to the railing and looked down at the ships below. "How long have these been here?" "Since the sealing," Junho said. 3,000 years, give or take. That's impossible. Humanity only reached space 80 years ago. Junho smiled sadly. "That is what we wanted everyone to believe. That is what we wanted to believe ourselves. But the truth, Captain, is that humanity is very, very old, and these ships are what we built when we were young and terrible." He touched a control panel. Holographic displays filled the air around them. Images of ancient battles, worlds burning, stars going dark, and through it all, ships like the ones in this cavern, moving like sharks through deep water. "A child died today," Junho said. "The galaxy watched and did nothing. They think we are weak. They think we will accept this." He looked at Mirai with eyes that had seen too much. "It is time to show them what humanity really is."